Okay. Okay. Hi everyone. Good morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you're joining us from. Thank you for joining the well, I hate to say the last policy Saturday class, but at least the last for this particular session as we prepare for Naija Policy Hack. Today we're talking about team building strategies. We have two wonderful speakers from the Policy Shapers team who will take us through that. But just to give us some preliminary information before the speakers go on, for those who are joining for the first time or watching this video on YouTube, and this is the first time you're learning about Policy Shapers. Policy Shapers is a civic tech organization, and our goal, our North Star, our vision is to, make public policy cool for young people and raise the next generation of citizens, active citizens who, through policy literacy will be able to engage governments at several levels. Our work obviously has spanned over the past 3 years. We were founded in August 2020, and the team has been driving this organization since then, with, of course, working on so many projects, including Naija Policy Hack being one of our projects. But then we've also had like advocacy projects like Reform IELTS, and we've spoken at quite a number of policy dialogue sessions at so many events. So these are some of the work we've done. As for work within the country, we contributed to the JAM reform bill, which is currently on the floor of the National Assembly. And we're hoping that bill will sign into law soon by the president, and will bring some major changes to the tertiary matriculation examination. And that would be of benefit, of course, to young people in the country. These are some of our partners that we worked with. We continue to work with so many partners. Our vision is that we cannot do it alone. So we continue to collaborate with organizations that work within this space to engage young people across the country. Again, just as a reminder, I'm sure for those who have joined the session over again, you must have heard this so many times. Naija Policy Hack is not a one-off event. That's why you've noticed that we're starting with Policy Saturday classes. And those classes will fit into the hackathon coming up next month, August 11 to 13. And then once the hacking happens, we get winners, we get some policy ideas. We then begin to create conversations around those ideas through our policy banter series, whether it's on Zoom or Twitter Spaces. Once those conversations begin to build up more steam, we can then begin to engage through advocacy. So the 4 pillars of our work, literacy, ideation, dialogue, and advocacy, all show forth through the Naija Policy Hack project, which is an end-to-end project. And of course, our policy community, becomes the foundation for all of these things that we're doing. So this second Naija Policy Hackathon is coming up from Friday, August 11 to Sunday, August 13. August 12th is International Youth Day, and that day will be all in, being engaged and hacking policy ideas. We personally do not think, as a team, we don't think there's a better way to commemorate International Youth Day than working with young people across the country to develop policy ideas, right? So the session today will talk about how people can build teams. We want to believe that one of the ways to build unity and collaboration across the country is to also bring young people who might not know themselves across the country to work together, towards a positive thing, and working towards making Nigeria better is one of the dreams that we have. So registration has closed currently, except like on very rare cases. If you know anyone that still, honestly is dying to be part of this, we'll find a way around it. However, formal registrations have closed. We received close to 400 registrations, and the team is working to sort out the applications. And we'll be getting in touch this week with all of those who had registered to inform them of their status and then share some more information about the hackathon. So I hope you can join us. Even if you can't join us to hack, if you're just watching this on YouTube or watching the recorded session, you can also join to just take part in the plenary sessions. Just to give you a tip of who and who is coming with, these are just a couple of them. Our keynote speaker, Didio Kunko-Wuneli, founder of Sahara Consulting and Ace Foods and Leap Africa. She's done quite a lot of work on youth engagement and youth leadership building across the country for so many years. I think like decades now. So I mean, let's join that session. It's going to be on Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. West African time. We also have a lineup of other speakers like Mr. Oke Epia, who is the chief executive at Other Paper. Other Paper works to bridge the gap between citizens and the legislature. And there's so much going on there. We also have a very esteemed panel of judges. Our jury ranges from so many people like we had last year. Our chief judge is returning this year as well. Olusegun Onigbide from Budgets and Civic Hive. We also have the Speaker of the Nigerian Youth Parliament joining us as well as folks from the Ministry of Youth in Abuja. So we have a lot of people who will be joining us this year. So we hope that you will be able to join us as well and have this great time together. The policy, the recording of last year's session, as we always say, is also online on our YouTube channel. On YouTube, we are at Policy Shapers. You can find us. Please subscribe to our channel and also turn on our post notifications so you can see when we upload all of the new videos. All the videos from this year's hackathon as well will also be uploaded to our YouTube channel. After today's session, where we upload the video, we'll have now had 8 sessions for Policy Saturday, starting from last year. And these sessions cover everything from like how to write policy brief, how to develop recommendations, how to write op-eds, research for policy writing. Today we'll talk about team building. There's also the first session we had where we spoke about what the Policy Hackathon is about and how we've taken part in so many policy hackathons and shared our experiences, just to give you an idea of what to do. So a good way to prepare for the hackathon could be to go through these classes. That's why they're all recorded for you. Go through the classes and prepare so that you have an idea of what to expect when you come for the hackathon. Okay, so enough said. I will hand over now to our 2 speakers for today. We have our founding team members, Kehinde Adebiyi and Comfort Onyaga. They'll be speaking about team building strategies. And they'll be speaking not just from the perspective of building a team for the hackathon, but also building a team generally. So if you have to build a team in your organization, build a team in your work, at school, what kind of tips should you have in mind? Kehinde is a PhD candidate at Indiana University, as well as other things, so many other things that Professor Kenny, as we call him, has achieved. We used to serve together as ambassadors. I think that was like that was a maiden cohort of ambassadors for Youth Lead, a USAID project. Comfy, as you guys know, Comfy was also facilitated the first session for this Policy Saturday series on the first Saturday of July. Comfy is, again, so many things. All these team members are so many things, right? Comfy is the founder of Nigeria's first agri-insurance tech product. She has a lot of experience managing and implementing projects and has worked with so many teams across organizations, and these projects have been funded by donors like USAID and DFID, European Union, to mention a few. So she'll share all of that experience that she has, and Kenny as well will share his experience from working on so many teams and how you can make the best of your teams and ensure that your teams deliver high results. So over to you, Kenny and Comfy, to take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ruben. Do you mind sharing how to share my screen? Yeah.
I can share for you. Maybe you say next for me to move, or
okay, great. Yeah, that's fine. That's
okay.
Fine.
Okay.
My name is Kenny, and then it's an honor to be here, as Eben has rightly described. I think the Policy Shapers group, we are so committed to ensure that policy ideas come from the majority of the population in the country, which are the youth in particular. But more importantly, leveraging the current digital transformation to transform some of these policies to life. And thank you for the kind introduction, Eben. I think it's an honor for me to be doing this alongside Comfort, because Comfort is a whole lot of many things beyond that exceptional ability to be on top of everything. And I think Eben did mention she's also the company secretary for Policy Shapers, because we are registered as a limited liability guaranteed company. And Comfort have done a lot. So I think I'll just give it to her to start with the introductory part of this session. Then before I move in, over to you, Comfort.
Oh my God, Kenny. Good evening, everyone. Nice to be here again. Thank you very much. Thanks for the introduction, Eben, and thank you so much, Kenny. Nice to be here and facilitating this with you. Yes, so I'll be speaking based on my experience, right? And again, I am one person who is driven by the passion to contribute to journey to self-reliance, and I mean Africans' journey to self-reliance, not just the Nigerians' journey to self-reliance. And if you have followed us closely, the policy shapers, you will see the common thread in all of this, because whatever it is that we have done from our track record, you can see that everybody has this burning passion for change. And guess what? I love this particular African proverb right here on my screen that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. This is actually the bedrock for the policy hackathon. This is the second edition. If you participated before and you're still participating, I think you will understand what I mean, because the hackathon is not something, it's not an activity that the participants get to carry out alone. Will be through our presentation, would actually be able to demonstrate to you how, as a team, we were able to do this in our own time. So we're speaking, or we would be speaking from our experiences, not just theoretically. So over to you, Kenny. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Comfort, and thank you, Eben, for changing the slide. As Comfort said, I think one of the fundamental core values of policy ideation and building is this concept of team. And even beyond policies, I think in anything we do, vis-a-vis research, developmental process, I'd argue that most of us on joining policy shapers and joining these sessions are involved in developmental spaces. And one thing we get to realize by now is that we can never do it alone. Like an idea that is formed just your own is just like an idea that may even not necessarily be correct, but have a potential of being iterated when you work with people. Which brings the concept of what is a team. And this may sound like cliche or what you're familiar with, but there are some fundamental core points about a team that we get to take away. The first is the fact that a team makes up a group of people. Certainly everybody would agree to this. But it doesn't mean that they have to be up to 10 or 15. Even as little as 2 persons, you have a team. 2 people can make something great happen, and they can also make something interesting, something disruptive. And also, it can also go bad. But the ability to recognize the fact that, building a team is not only about you, but us. So changing the language from I to we is one of the fundamental core values that I need to understand in a team. But the cool thing about team is this set of diverse skills, and we're going to talk specifically on this, and these are some of the things we'll look at, is that what brings 2 or more people together is to have a shared vision, then work in the concept of diversity based on their different experiences so that they can achieve a common goal. Now, we also address this because it's just an introductory slide. One of the fundamental core values also of team is that everything a team does should also have to be interdependent. And that's why if you see in this slide, you have a preceding point of shared vision and this concept of interdependence. So it's basically to have a team, one, they have to be a group of people, obviously more than one person, with diverse knowledge, diverse ideas, but with a central goal, a common vision to achieve an objective. But more importantly, knowing that even though I may have my tasks delegated to me, which we are going to speak about delegation also in the course of this talk, we are working interdependently with no threat for each other. It's not a competition, basically, and we're going to speak more about it. So to build a strong team, this slide is like a summary slide detailing what you need, particularly as it applies to the hackathon. And we're going to share some more case studies. So how can you work together in a group of people to achieve policy hackathon ideas and to ensure that whatever you are bringing up is not only disruptive, but reflects each person's passion in a well synergized way. And so that's the introductory slide. I would throw it back to Comfort to talk more about diversity in teams because she has much work more in this area.
Okay, thank you very much, Kenny. Nice one. So in terms of team building, right? One of the major characteristics of a team is diversity. So it speaks to background, people coming from different backgrounds, but then bounded by a shared vision, as Kenny mentioned earlier. And again, the thing is about diversity, the beauty of diversity is the fact that there is usually that interdisciplinary approach. Like, for instance, I know that in international relations, For instance, there's a theory that says that everybody is shaped by everything people see, right, is shaped by the color of their lens. Like if you come into a room and you're putting on a glasses, right, like me, a pair of glasses like me, right, what you're seeing might be different from what the other person sees, because what you're seeing is actually colored by, it's like your viewpoint is different. Basically, it's bringing different perspective to the table. So there's usually numerous view and learning opportunity. So for instance, I'm from a social science background. Kenny is from the sciences, you know, Eben and Terry, as well as Chimdi and Toby. We all came from different backgrounds, but regardless of our background, because we have a common vision, which is to, you know, develop policy ideas that would drive change, bring about the change that we want to see in the country. It's not that we put aside our differences, right? But then we leverage each other's skills, area of expertise, competencies, you know, and experiences to make sure that we come up with a very disruptive policy idea. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Comfort, for that. I think just to add to this would be like, I think one major learning experience for me and as a scientist is that I've learned over the years that the way we think about in our thinking process, our view of things, you know, is shaped from where we come from. And I'm going to use a personal experience before we go to the next slide. In 2020, I was opportune to work with the United Nations Academic Impact, where I lead the Millennium Fellowship. And I was the first African director to do this, African person to be the program director. Now, why am I saying this? Is that the job requires me to work with 80 campuses across 20 countries, you know, from Australia, from Afghanistan. And I have meetings with campus directors from different universities, from Harvard University, from, you know, name it, you know, IIT in India, you know, to even the Australian University. And we have a shared objective, the same project. And for the first time in my life, I learned different thinking perspective, that there will be something that Australia is thinking that would appear wrong to the American. Why would you think about it this way? But it's shaped by culture and expertise. Now, it was my duty, and obviously with the team members at the UN, to ensure that like we synergize these different perspectives. And I think after about 3 or 4 months of working together across boards, we recorded the highest level, you know, of impact the company has ever recorded, even the program, impacting over 1 million people lives. And I could bet it with you that if we just have a bunch of Americans in for the program or just tons of Nigerian students, there are some ways in which we think or issues are affected when we look at it. A typical example was the COVID-19, right? One of the challenges that we had was, how can we tackle COVID-19? What do people need? What do people need? You see the American profiling solutions like, let's talk about mental health. Let's talk about vaccine knowledge, vaccine education. You not see the American, you know, talking about, let's provide internet for people, how people continue their education. Because at the time, even though COVID-19 also affected the country, the North American system, the education system proceeded fine because of there's internet, you know, there's e-learning. But let's come back to Nigeria. You see the African person, you know, retreating on ideas of how do we want to talk about, even not even necessarily vaccines, but how can education continue? What can you do when being at home? Why? Because we have a lot of challenge of data management and technology. Now, as a team, we're able to see that different background, different perspective also bring different problem statements. And ability to synergize it shows the fact that diversity is one of the strongest, as I said, the bedrock of teams. And you see it applied also in Naija Policy Hackathon. I'm sure Eben said that we're going to send out application very soon. But one thing, last thing I would like to say, that we have people from different places, different part of the countries, even outside of Nigeria, sorry. I mean, the US, as well as outside the United States, out of Nigeria. And you see that people bring in problem statement that will be like, oh, this is not priority. Your ability to understand that people have their different perspective, change and shaped by their experience, and bringing a synergized common ground is one of the fundamental attributes of diversity in teams. And as the last point here said, that will eventually lead to a competitive output. Now on to the next slide, please. So I would hand it over to Comfort soon, but one of the things we thought to do here is to bring a case study that, like, even beyond talking about theoretical stuff, how did we meet? How did the whole policy shaper team start? Like, what is the bedrock of policy shaper? I can bet it I have a different story, and I'm sure Comfort has a different story. And I don't know if Eben is here, he can even maybe say 1 or 2 things about, because he's the mastermind, right? He started the whole stuff out. How do they even pull all of us together? I will start with my story, then give it to Comfort to hand over. Basically, I work with IBEN, with USAID, right? Usually United States Agency for International Development. And we're the first youth ambassador selected in Nigeria. And we work on an array of issues, advocacy, different interesting programs. But one thing we did not do was policy. I was not a policy shaper at first. But after a successful work together, he even reached out to me that, Kenny, I want to start this thing. And he posted on his WhatsApp, and I was like, I'm interested, but I don't know anything about policy. But there are some fundamental skills we recognize. Number one, the passion for change. So ability to research, and there's a lot of learning opportunities. For somebody like me, I grew up in Lagos all through my life. My work is science and SDG space. Iben is one of the best, even though he's not doing that much anymore, he's one of the best journalism person I've seen. So his ability to craft stuff, to bring ideas into fusion is absolutely phenomenal. Now, that cross-fertilization of ideas, that diversity, and Iben has basically traveled all over the world, even much more than I've done. But more importantly, come from a part of Nigeria where you recognize some major issues like data issues. I've only been reading about it, but Iben sits and work with people and also experience why this thing matters and how policy in the area can be important. For somebody like me, I'll think more about policy in urban area because I lived in Lagos all through my life. I saw the problem happening in Lagos, and that was cool. I never knew who Comfort was until we got added to the group. And I met Comfort, and for the first time, I saw how someone can be so disruptive with ideation. I'm going to speak about that as we move on. And Comfort will always come with different ideas and reasoning about different people, bringing on the gaps in why this may work and that may not work. And at first I'll be like, and Comfort might not have heard this from me, but I'll be like, okay, like I get it, Comfort, we have all of these ideas, let's pick one. But our ability to synergize them is actually very impressive, and that's what I've learned. So I would say that, diversity as a team is a very fundamental bedrock. And maybe one thing last time I would like to say that if you look at all of this field, we are from different fields. Even studied from Harvard, have tons of degree, was a Mandela Washington Fellow. And you have, Comfort leading the entrepreneurial space. For 30 years has been a major government specialist, and you have tech members and this. So we recognize our different background. And this was the first thing we did when we met, introducing each other, identifying our backgrounds, not only culturally, but also skills-wise, we are going to speak about. But I'll throw it, to Comfort to shed more light about the concept of case study and how to leverage it for a successful team.
Thank you very much, Kenny. So first, I would like to say, I've mentioned this earlier, I'm from a social science background. I'm a graduate of political science, and then I'm currently doing an MBA with a specialization in sustainability. But how we met, really, I've always known Iben within the development space. I was working with Pin Foundation at the time. I founded Kleist Foundation, a non-profit, and through this organization, we've worked across the Niger Delta region and other parts of Nigeria within the socio-economic development space and then policy advocacy. So for me, it was during the pandemic, really, when Iben, because I've been following Iben for a while, he tweeted about participating in a hackathon. I think it was the Stanford hackathon or MIT hackathon. Kenny, can you correct me if I'm wrong? One of those.
I think it was Stanford. I think it was Stanford hackathon.
Okay, yeah, it was Stanford hackathon. So I think we were the only Nigerians and Africans on that hackathon, right? So it was on Twitter. When I saw it, I was like, oh wow, like this is it. I'm going to jump on this. I reach out to Iben and he's like, okay, you know what, let's form a team. I think there are a couple of persons that are interested in this as well. So we created WhatsApp platform, and from there we participated. And guess what? At the hackathon, the policy track that we are interested in was not even part of it. Like we placed a demand. And that's an advocacy in itself. We spoke in one voice because we are representing not just Nigeria or the Niger Delta region where we've worked before, or the urban community where Kenny was born and bred. Like we decided to, put forward a pressing issue that affects the entire continent, Africa. It was in doing all of that, and then we actually. We did very well, I must say. We were able to also use that opportunity to understand our core areas of strength, and during the hackathon, trust me, it was the outcome of the hackathon and the policy idea that we came up with is a product of synergy. Like, I did not do it alone. Eben did not do it. The fact that Eben was the one who reached out does not mean that we'll now leave it on his shoulder alone, right? After that, we went on to participate in another hackathon. And from there, we decided to say, you know what, why not we take this beyond this? We can actually organize our own hackathon. And thereafter, we came up with policy shapers. And, you know, again, even when you talk about diversity, it's actually expressed outrightly here as we are presenting. I'm presenting, Kenny is presenting from different perspectives. We are able to share our experiences, like coming from diverse background, you know, and field of studies. So I'll actually use this opportunity to urge the participants again to say, you know what, one of the best ways you can have a very competitive policy idea outcome at the end of this hackathon is for you to, first of all, during your team formation, identify your core strengths, your core areas of competencies. You can do a mapping, right? And look at the scope of work and say, ask questions among yourself to say, okay, you know, who can do this? Who's good with research? Who's good with reporting and all of that? So leverage your skills to ensure that you're able to come out with the best result. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Flowing from that, I think so that's just like a bedrock of how the policy party was formed. I think one thing to identify from there is, and I think following up from that is that, I think the first thing we did as a team was participating in an hackathon. We didn't just wake up one day to say, I want to start a policy party. We've participated in multiple hackathons at international levels. And because the first one was a learning process. It was my first policy hackathon. Like, I've done a lot of research, but I've not done anything about policy. But that provided for us an avenue to identify everybody's strengths and weaknesses. And that's very fundamental. That, like, you want to, you have a very common objective. Piggybacking to what Comfort said, I think when we saw the Stanford University track, the open data track, or I don't know which part of it, and I missed it up, they have a lot of track, interesting problems they want us to talk about. But we felt that, like, this, they are pressing issue, but it doesn't reflect the African issue or the Nigerian issue that all of us are passionate about. And we came up together with one voice to present one issue. Yet, obviously, they approved that after the advocacy. But we recognize that there needs to be different skills that need to bring on board. So the first part of it, I think you need to own that there's a shared vision, and I spoke about that. So the first thing you want to do, let's even bring it practically to the policy hackathon for those that participate, is your team coming up with different perspectives, different background, but having a shared vision that, like, okay, this is what we want to work on as a team. This is the project we want to tackle. Now, once there's a shared vision, it's very easy to come into this other part of it, identifying skills, and which is very, very important for team building. Now, when you define the central objective, which is what I just spoke about, which is the concept of shared vision, you need to identify the needed skills. A typical example, let's say you want to work about on startup bills, like, you know, the effect of the changing dollar dynamics in Nigeria or Forex on startup. Let's say that's what your team is working on. You have to recognize that, one, you need research. You need somebody with a very deep knowledge of maybe economics. And even if the person is not in your field, you know, for example, there's no one like that in your team who is willing to take on the research, who is also fast enough to take on the research. It also doesn't mean that you cannot do this, but recognizing your area of strength. You need a dedicated team of writers. Why? I think one thing we do all the time is that, like, we have a Google Sheet or Google, where everybody see, like, okay, what is going on when each person, and anybody can type stuff there. But I'm going to speak about this also in our case study next time. Like, somebody like Iben is one of the best writers I've ever met in my life. So once we have ideas, we put it together. When Iben is typing, I kind of wait until it's done to see, because there's a tendency he may type it, he may have crafted better than I do, even though I also believe I'm a very good writer. But I know that Iben does this thing faster than I do. Recognizing that it's not like I'm lesser or like I don't know much, but it makes things faster. I can dedicate time in other things. So identifying the needs, even categorizing it, you need research, you need writing, you need, different part of things. Then you want to pull all of these available skills together. They're like, okay, to solve this core problem, to solve this core objective, you understand. This is a pool of skills that we have. We have a tech person, we have a graphic person, we have a team of writers, we have people that are good at research. Somebody like me is very good with primary data sources. I remember in our first, hackathon, we are using secondary data. And maybe for those that may not know the difference between these two, primary data sources are data that you got yourself, that, like, you go out to the field, you got the data yourself, like you bring this analysis, the survey form, and everything. Now, the other part of data is secondary data, where You just go online, check a bunch of literature reviews, publication, news to pull stuff together. I remember doing the hackathon, the first one participating. I was very big on primary data because I'm a researcher, I'm a scientist. I feel like what we get ourselves is more important. But second data will also lead us to the changing dynamics. Within 3 days, we started a survey form, analytics form, and we got, I'm sure it was over 100 respondents on one of the problems we are tackling them, just within 72 hours of hackathon. Why? Because I knew that was my area of strength, and I led that alongside Comfort and also Event to pull it out. While we're doing that, the likes of Eben and Shindi, we're working on secondary sources because they are more very fast. They have some idea of the stuff. So understanding this is very, very crucial. The last part is identifying gaps. One, the team, it's even in the public workspace, not talk less of a team where you guys just met on the day of your hackathon. You see that you have 5 members, but you need like 10 skills. The 5 members can provide 8 out of those 10 skills. So there are 2 gaps left. As a team, it becomes on you guys to say, we want to learn this as fast as possible. Where can we bring compromises? But it's quite interesting because the reason why this is very interesting is because your ability to pull your skills together makes you identify needed gap. If it was the contrary, where like you guys don't have this conversation, what can this person do? What can that person do? You will see what we call repetitive or redundant efforts. And that is one thing that takes away time and less productivity. And by redundant efforts or like repetitive efforts, it means that like I'm doing primary data, Eben also is doing primary data. And we are doing exactly the same thing. And then we then start to write again. Because Eben is stressed out, I have to get this primary data. I don't think there's anybody that can do it better. But we don't have the conversation. Oh, Eben, I can handle this. Where are the writing? And let's say there's this last thing we cannot handle, the graphic design. We leave ourselves no space to even think about how to resolve it. So for this team, for this policy hackathon, for those that will participate, and for whatever you are doing, whatever team you are working with, whether you are the team lead or not, I think it's very, very important that once the fundamental objective has been identified, the next thing you want to move on to would be identifying the needed skills, pull the available skills together and get the gaps. Like I think this is one of the hack, at least I've worked with a lot of teams, that is very fundamental to achieve progress. And yes, and that's just about the concept of identifying skills. If you don't get anything at all from this session, I think this is very, very big, and that directly translates to the concept of the policy hackathon that we're having in about a month. I think the next slide, I think I'll jump it over to Comfort. Hey, Comfort, are you there? Can you hear?
Oh, yes, I'm here. Thank you. Well done, Kenny. You've covered everything, honestly. So in terms of the policy shapers team, we've spoken so much about the diversity of the team and area of expertise and competencies and how we were able to navigate the hackathon when we had as before organizing this. And it is on that basis that we are able to, transfer this knowledge. So like Kenny said earlier, Eben was actually good with graphics and all. Kenny was in charge of research. Terry brings a lot of experience to the team, and she was able to, from her experience, share with us how to navigate, the main writing, aside writing, but then critical stakeholders engagement. Why Chimdi, on the other hand, Chimdi is very good with research again as well. And in terms of data analytics, Kenny had it all, like he's just an embodiment of that. On the other hand, we have Oluwatobi, who is a tech for development expert. He's good with data, graphics, ability analysis, and myself. Because I've worked in the development sector and I've done a lot of policy advocacy, I was able to, also contribute through developing a framework for result measurement, the theory of change, setting the KPIs, and ensure that we are all able to contribute. I mean, watching all our activities and everything we were doing along the line to ensure that we are able to get the outcome that is expected. Over to you, Kenny.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jacob. I think I'm still on this slide a bit even. I think one thing that I want to say is this concept of theory of change. Now, during our first policy, and if I also define what theory of change is for those that don't be familiar with it. During our first hackathon, I never knew what theory of change is because I've doing a lot of research. In research, you just have conclusion, basically. And I think Comfort saying that we need to have a theory of change. Like, she was just farming on that. Like, I was like, we have other things to talk about. Like, we've not even spoken about, you know, the background. We are still working on the stuff. And she's so big on the concept of theory of change. And it was not until we eventually finished the stuff and she took it out to, I think, develop a whole framework on the theory of change. Is that it's actually the part that ties the policy itself together. That, like, we've identified the problem. This is what we are proposing. And this is like the theoretical framework we are bringing to bring change. For me, in any policy, I think that's the first thing I read after learning that. Even when I read about the central problem, if I want to skim through a policy paper, I look at if they have a theory of change, whether designed in a framework line or in a statement. And for those that this was one major hack, because it ties everything together. Your background is okay, but everybody identify problems. There's no, yes, you have to do your research to bring your background, but all of us know what the problem are. The second part is like you bring about recommendations, right? So what will this recommendation lead to? This is a concept of theory of change. And why I'm speaking about this is that, like, it's something I didn't know about. I've done a lot of research. And you could imagine me maybe arguing with Comfort on the team that, like, I think I do research. I'm doing it for like over a decade. I don't think this is essential. Let's deal with it later. So that proactiveness, recognizing, you know, the different perspective and different work area is very, very crucial in a team building. And I think even though I wrote writing, design, addition with Eben, I think Eben can do everything in my opinion. But like, despite the fact that Eben is a multi-potentialist, and that's what I respect about him. And for some of it, that may be so. Eben can do virtually everything. He could write. I didn't put research here, but he can research. But he knows when to delegate. Like, and we're going to speak about that in our subsequent slide. And this is just moving on to that. He knows that we need to spread across this concept of, you know, work and knowing that, like, I can do this, but there's another person that also have this skill. So let me take ahead of this start so that this person with this skill can move ahead. And you understand this concept of pulling skills together. And that the idea of this slide is like, we are bringing in real time how to pull skills together. Maybe you thought it's practical. So you meet your team members, let's say during the policy hackathon, you guys introduce yourself. I think one of the first questions you need to have, conversation rather, after identifying your shared objective is, what are your skills? What do you think you are good at? And like, okay, you have these strong people in your team, and that will be very, very helpful, even beyond the policy hackathon. Next slide, people. Well, and which bring into delegation, right? And I honestly we prepared this slide, so I knew this is coming. And I just cited Eben example. Is that, like, I think one of the interesting way to build team, successful team, and achieve productivity is this concept of delegation. And this was difficult for me to learn because I'm a researcher and a scientist. And this is one thing we don't do much in science. Because you have your personal project. You don't have anybody you can delegate project to. You work on stuff all alone. It's your life, it's your project. Like, you can speak to people, but you cannot delegate. It's different in the workspace. It's different out there. And unlike in the scientific community where you are not necessarily pressed for time, people don't care whether it takes you 10 years. As far as you bring about quality research and something that is disruptive, that's fine for them. But for an hackathon of 72 hours, for a company, a private company, because research are mostly funded by taxpayer money, like NIH or government money, so maybe we can take more time on what. But for something that is profit-oriented or policy-based oriented or even time-bound, delegating tasks is the most fundamental thing anyone can do. Now, for us, and this is the last, even though there's no slide talking about this, we came together as a team to participate in policy hackathon, right? To participate together. I think it may be good if you guys want to identify a group leader, and some do not. Why Eben do not see himself as the group leader at the time, but all of us kind of knew that, like, okay, we want to have a conversation, we want to delegate duties, we want to push stuff. There's someone that championed the conversation, that was Eben. And for me, Eben is the team leader, even before we started Policy Shaper, before we have it defined, okay, Eben will be the team leader for Policy Shaper. Even before Policy Shaper started, in meeting with Hackathon, it's not like he's expressly stated, it's not like he's employing any of us, it's just towards this common shared vision. And this makes delegation easy, because you have somebody that, okay, we've put the skills together. The other way you can work around delegation is if it's not this concept of maybe somebody may be giving tasks. And we also do that also in our team. And Eben is very good with this. It's like you have a set of table or maybe list of what is needed to be done. You have set of available skills of different people, and people will just be talking, okay, I can take this, I can take that, I can take this, I can take that. Till again, you have someone that needs to coordinate all of this in real time, like, accountability of it. Okay, this task has been delegated to this person, this task has been delegated to that person, this task has been delegated to that person. And you see some tasks that are flowing behind, nobody is left to do it. And sometimes you see maybe Comfort or even saying things like, okay, do you want to do that? Do you mind doing that? Why they suggested that is because of, you're like, looking at my profile, what I've done before, can't you be able to do that? Well, that's why I'm happy to do that. Or even we say, okay, I could do this additionally. So the power of delegation also reduce this concept of redundancy and make you achieve things in little time that you have. And more importantly, you also build effective time management. It makes work goes very fast. What we are asking you guys to do, obviously, is an hackathon, but bringing a policy idea to a perennial problem in the country, like let's say the problem of electricity or climate change. This is a problem that has been existing that people studying, even understanding the whole course of climate change itself can take 4 years to understand, like as a course of study. And here you are, you want to understand the problem, you want to bring recommendations and bring theory of change all within 72 hours. You need to delegate tasks, and that will effectively manage time. By delegating tasks, the most important part of delegation to me is what we call trust. Is that you don't want to believe that, like, I can do this thing better than this person and being on the toe of the individual. You have a meeting, you've delegated a task to someone to do it. You also have to give the person the trust. Doesn't mean you can't give recommendations. Doesn't mean you can't add additions to whatever they do, but you have to trust the person. I think your fundamental thinking should not be like, can they do it the way I can do it? It may even be your perfect expertise, like just like I said, but you can't do everything at once. You have limited time. I think the most important part of delegation is trust. You just need to trust the individual and give the work to. And we are going to also cover that in the next slide. There's a way to also look at, is trusting the individual enough? When would you know whether they are doing the right thing or not? And that's also is addressed in this presentation. And this is what you want to do, but also give it to comfort to kind of wrap it up with this concept of delegation.
Yeah, so to wrap it up, I would say that because this is actually a tendency that we might see, right? One of the things I would like to say here is this: when you start the hackathon, do not feel like, oh, this person knows it, this person has the capacity, this person can do it, or why not we let him do it? No. That, like, you'll be doing yourself a disservice, because at the end of the day, at the end of the whole hackathon exercise, you want to go back with that enriched experience. That's the objective of this exercise. We want young people to be able to get involved. It's not enough to stay outside to criticize what the problem is. It's not enough to even just talk about the solution. But we are saying that based on how you feel and based on what you know, the experience that you have, come together and get this policy idea out, leveraging that trust. Like I know that for the participants, you probably will be meeting yourself for the first time through this hackathon, just like Eben, Kenny, Terry, Toby and I met for the first time on Twitter during the Stanford Hackathon and MIT Hackathon. So, but then this becomes a platform that you can continue to also drive change. Like, we want you to take ownership of the journey. And as you can see, with the Reform IELTS campaign, like, we are not just the ones at the forefront of it. We have young people across the globe championing this cause. So we want to see that you take ownership of it, get involved, and ensure that you do not leave it to one person alone because you feel that person knows how to do it. Next slide, please. Okay, team monitoring and evaluation. So if we go back to the theory of change that I mentioned earlier, right? That theory of change, gives you like an overview of what you want, the kind of change you want to see, and what would be done that would lead to the next thing that if this thing happens, then this one would happen, and then you can now achieve like your overall outcome. But then along the line, because you have sets of activities, it's not enough to develop a policy memo, right? You have series of activities that you'll be involved in order to achieve that policy outcome, to get stakeholders buy-in. Remember, we talked about the stakeholders engagement and several other activities in the previous policy Saturdays. So for the monitoring and evaluation, based on your key set of activities, we have measurable goals, like the things you want to see happen. So for instance, if you say, let me use a practical example, right? You identify your policy during the policy hackathon, you identify the problem, you have your problem statement, you have your key objective. From your key objective, for each of those objectives, right? If you have 2 or 3 objectives, one of each of those objectives will have key activities, the things that you would do to be able to achieve that set objective that you want to see, happen at the end of that, if that policy idea is adopted and implemented. So what you then do is you break it down. So let's pick education as an example. If you say you want to see, you're writing a policy idea, a policy memo to the chairman has committee on education, and you want to see an increase in budgetary allocation. So in setting your objective and your key activities, so one of the things you want to be able to do is, for every activity that is carried out, you want to be able to measure to say, okay, this is the level of effort, I have put into this activity. This is what we have achieved based on this. And then by the time you set those measurable goals or KPIs, the key performance indicators, what are those things that will happen that will make you feel that you have contributed, like your effort is not in vain, you've contributed to seeing that change, even though not the overall change yet. So if you have access to a particular stakeholder within the educational sector, for instance, that's actually a progress. That's a milestone achievement. That's something. It also improves motivation and performance. Like, you can actually pat yourself on the back and say, yes, we've done this, even though we have not gotten to the ultimate goal. Look at the reform IRTS. Like, we've been able to engage key stakeholders, both within and outside Nigeria. We've been able to engage young people who are affected by this policy. And we've been able to engage with the UK Home Office, right? But in all of this, it is not that we have achieved all the overall goal as regards the particular policy issue that we're trying to address. But for every milestone that we have achieved, we've been able to put it out there for the whole world to see that, yes, this is the progress that we have achieved. And it continues to motivate us to improve and to put in more effort to ensure that we see the policy outcome. Over to you, Kenny.
Yeah, thank you so much, Comfort. I would say, so Comfort came with very perspective about this monitoring and evaluation, that is monitoring and evaluating the progress of your hackathon, like your policy, and that's fantastic. Like, it's the essence of what we are doing. I'll come from a different lens on the concept of monitoring and evaluation when it comes to team. Now, we just spoke about delegation. Now, is it enough, despite the fact that you build trust, is it enough to just leave the person to go? And you have 72 hours, and you want to trust the person will come back after 70 hours, and the 2 hours you put together. That would be a doomsday. It's the disaster to do that. Now, one of the things you want to, it's not like you are putting anybody back, is having time to meet as a team. I remember doing the hackathon. What we do is we delegate tasks. I'll be like, oh, we meet in the next 4 hours or 5 hours. And we come together. Oh, what is the progress? What is the challenges? What is the progress? What is the challenges? Like, that's very, very important, because, you want to know, is this person working? But not only is the person working, that's not even your core objective. Is that what challenges does this person have? It has happened repeatedly in all of the hackathons we participated in, where I'm looking for something, for example, I've been assigned a task and I've gotten all other pieces and many one piece. And in our monitoring and evaluation meeting, just to check in, and I was like, I've been searching for this, I'll soon be done. And people will say like, oh, or maybe Comfort, oh, I saw an article on that, let me send it to you. And that stops it, So, and it's very cool. Also, that also give people perspective of the way you are thinking about things. Are they thinking about it the wrong way, or are you thinking about it the wrong way? It brings more additional stuff, and it improves your motivation and performance. More importantly, because the hackathon can be stretchy, 72 hours. It's a lot of, it's not like you won't sleep, but I don't think the sleep will come peacefully like that, to be honest, because you have limited time. But you also improve your motivation, because even if you take some rest, you can also feel like, oh, I have to say something by 5 p.m. with my teammates. It improves your tracking of time and when to do stuff and how to do stuff effectively. And eventually, it redefines your output, because you don't want to meet after 70 hours. You guys met during your first session and you decide on the problems you are solving, and okay, let's just keep working on the good doc. And people are putting different stuffs. We want to meet for periodic meetings. And that's one part of our office of the hackathon I want to talk about, is this concept of office hours. So we have office hours, and it's good for teams to also use this. But office hours where you can come and meet with mentors, like, okay, this is what we are working on. Do you have any idea for us how to make it better? I also think it's not a good idea that your first meeting as a group after dividing tasks is when you guys come for the office hours now. Because you don't want to present different problems that you people can solve on your own to the mentor that is more experienced. What we want to do is that, like, it's very, very important that you guys meet on your own, identify, okay, this is what we've been able to attend to, this is what this person, okay, we've got this cover. This, in our office hour, we don't understand what this is saying, we can ask that question. You guys are sharing a shared problem, like a shared gap. You still go back to this concept of identifying skills, pulling skills together, and also identifying the gaps. So you can go to ask for help because the hackathon provides such opportunity. And this is where monitoring and evaluation comes in, tracking individual progresses. Not like you're not trusting the other persons, but making things go faster, more better, and also redefining your output. Next slide, Ethan. And as we are starting to round up things, I saw this. So there are different C's of team building. If you Google C's of team building, I'm sure you see one of these pictures. But there are different C's. There are 5 C's, there are 7 C's, different people. But I will speak to this in different way, and I'll give it comfort to round it up. Is that, like, building a team, the first thing is clarity. And so if you don't remember anything, just this kind of bring everything we're saying together. The first thing is clarity. And what's the concept of clarity? Is that a team must have a shared vision. Where did that shared vision come from? The core objective. Now, you are coming for a policy hackathon, people with different passion, different ideas. While we try our best, we try our possible best based on your submission to bring people together based on their interest. We will do that. But you may be surprised that, let's say some person's interest is in climate change. And you put 4 people together. Person A may be interested in natural gas. Like, okay, how can we reduce the use of coal? Person B may be interested in afforestation. How can we ensure that there's tree being planted? And these are 2 different domains of climate change. Person C may come in from biology, like, okay, how can we ensure that there's a lot of microorganisms using the carbon flux? Somebody like me will be thinking about that. But identifying the core objective, okay, we have a core objective of climate change, but what do we want to tackle? Like, how do we want to synergize all of this? I think it's one of the most important conversations to have, and everybody is on board with it. So you have clarity of what you want to do. Why does this matter? Is there a shared passion to this? Why should we tackle this problem? I think that's the first thing you need to recognize. The second is connection. By understanding clarity, the part of connection comes to the part where you identify skills. And that's why I love this C, because it kind of owns up everything we're speaking about. When you identify skills, and by identify skills, what do we mean? Is that you connect to your team members, where you get to know their backgrounds, where they are from, what their expertise are. Then you start developing a bit of trust. That, oh, this person can do this. I don't need to worry about this while I work on that. And this is the concept of connection. Putting your skills together, putting your backgrounds. And obviously, even though what we are doing is formal, but there's also need a bit of informal ties. And we see in our meeting, we may be talking about a particular program, we start talking about Nigeria issues, giving different ideas. And there was a time we had a meeting as a policy team, and the first almost half an hour I was talking about the subsidy. It was not about, we wanted to plan the policy hackathon, but people share the idea of perspective. We look at people different reasoning from different parts of the world. And that was good. So you said connection. Obviously, you guys don't have much time to talk about stuff that are not related to the hackathon because you have 72 hours. But understanding where people have come, knowing their skill sets is a way to build connection with them for successful outcome. Now, having built connection, you move to the upper level of commitment. Now, you have a shared purpose, which is the concept of clarity. You identify the pool of skills. Then people tend to commit. They're like, I can handle this. I want to do this. And the other person gets to commit. Now, this concept of commitment is very, very important because it brings also delegation. People delegate tasks. So you delegate this task to this person, you delegate tasks to this person, people have commitment. And lastly, contribution, and which brings to this concept of monitoring and evaluation. You come back to periodic meetings, you evaluate what each person is contributing, you see what they are doing for betterment, you recommend new ideas, you identify gaps, and you define your output, you get a greater good. So you can see this is our final slide, I believe, but that ties together everything we're saying from A to Z, starting with this concept of what is a team and how does all of this work. And the concept of, as I said earlier, we start with clarity, connection, commitment, and also contribution. Thank you so much, Eben. Yeah, I forgot we have this last slide, but it's very, very important. I'm not sure if comfort is there. I want to speak to this last slide.
Yes, I'm here. So well done, Kenny. Okay, so recall that there's usually a shared vision, like there's that one thing that has brought you all together, right? So it's not just for your own individual interest. You're not here to represent your your own personal vision alone, but the vision of the team for the country. The hackathon is not just for you. The hackathon is to solve a problem, to come up with a policy idea, right, that will solve a problem for the entire country. So you need to ensure that you commit, like, if everything on this slide is actually embedded in that 4C that Kenny spoke about not too long ago. Again, as a team, we know that this hackathon is a competition. There is a prize to be won, fantastic prizes. Everybody's looking forward to getting that prize. But however, within your core team, like it could be a team of 5 or 10 or 15, as the case may be, depending on the track that you pick. The competition here is not amongst yourself as a team, but for each of the sub-team, for the different tracks. So for instance, we have the climate change, we have agriculture and food security, we have education, right? So if the competition is between this group A and group B and group C, but amongst yourself, you need to ensure that you stay committed to the goal. Like, what is the vision? The end goal is to come up with a disruptive policy memo or policy idea. And the idea is to ensure that we win as a team, not me comfort outdoing Kenny or Ebenezer from my own team. No, nobody is going to give anybody from a team a particular prize to say, okay, this is the person that did the most in that team. So everybody, like every joint has to supply to ensure that the overall goal and the shared vision for that team is achieved. And shared concern, I mean, what's the problem? What's the problem you're trying to solve? How can you solve it? How can I bring my own perspective to ensure that I contribute to the outcome that we want to see? Then share success. I mean, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, move together. At the end of the hackathon, the success is yours as a team, not an individual. So the success of the hackathon that we participated in was not Ebenezer's or Comfort or Kenny, but it was our success. So this is the concept of collaboration. So you need to synergize, bring your ideas together, your experience, your expertise, delegate as much as you can to ensure that you have a competitive outcome.
Yeah, thank you for comfort. I believe this is the last slide. Ben, am I right? I may be wrong again. But yeah, definitely, we're happy to welcome questions. But generally, we are very happy as policy shapers. Looking forward to the hackathon. You may be surprised with the number of participants we have here. We have over 400 applicants. So the hackathon will be very different. And we have this recorded. For those that attended this, it's a spot on for you on the spot. For those that will participate later, they have to see the recording so that they can have a grasp of, because we can't repeat all of this in the hackathon. That's the purpose of it. So they're looking forward. I will jump it over to Heben to round it up. Maybe we have time to take 1 or 2 questions if there are any other. It's been a privilege. I'm not talking to all of you.
Thank you so much, Kenny, and thank you so much, Comfy. I mean, you guys, you can see how intelligent and smart these people are. They're like the most kick power team you can ever find, and I feel like I'm always blessed to to listen to them and also to learn from them. So if we have any questions, we can just take 1 or 2 questions quickly. We're at time, so we can just take 1 question. If you don't have any question directly, feel free to tweet it at us. If you're in the Naija Policy Hackathon group, feel free to post the question there as well. We're going to stop the recording now, so we can upload this later.